We'll take first question on the left side here, fourth row.
Right, Rick. Guilherme Giovannoni from ESPN Brazil. You have been in the 2011 finals as an underdog, and you guys won. How do you think that experience can help you through these finals, and how to pass that to your players?
Yeah, Oklahoma City's a great team, and yeah, we're aware what's expected here, and so we've got a lot of work cut out for us. A lot of our guys have been through a lot of situations where they've been underdogs in the past, and it's simply going to come down to us being able to play our game at the best possible level. We're going to need to take care of the ball because these guys turn people over at a historic rate, and we're going to have to make some shots.
Joe, up here in the front.
Hey, Rick. There's been some discussion this week about this being a small market finals, and the Thunder were just up there, said some really cool stuff about what it's like to play here. You've had this long career and lived and worked in massive markets and small markets. What do you find is the charm of coaching and working in Indianapolis?
You know, a lot of people talk about great places to live. When you have a good situation, you're working with great people, and your team is good, that's a great place to live. You know, and small market, big market, you know, it doesn't matter. I have such great respect for what Oklahoma is building here. I know Mark Daignault pretty well, and Sam Presti and I go way back. You know, I was invited to San Antonio's training camp in the fall of 2000 when I was headed into a year where I was going to take a year away, and ended up doing broadcasting stuff. But Sam Presti was an intern for the Spurs at that time. And I remember, you know, he is from the Boston area, so he had grown up a Celtics fan. So he actually remembered when I played, which was miraculous to me. It seemed like he was probably way too young for that. But we had a couple of dinners together, and you know, he asked me, you know, what can I do? I gotta somehow get a job out of this. I said, well, just become a guy that they can't live without. And Sam is a great demonstration of resourcefulness and you know, wherewithal and stuff like that. And he's forged himself a great career. He and Kevin Pritchard are two of the best franchise builders around. And so this series really should celebrate those two guys and their staffs and what they've done. But as far as the markets, you know, I understand that there would be concern for, you know, how many people would watch because they're smaller markets. But if we're celebrating the game and we're putting game above all, which was one of the things that Adam Silver said when he became commissioner, then it really shouldn't matter. You know, it really shouldn't matter. And so I know that we're going to do our very best to represent our city, our state, at the best possible level. You know, Thunder will do the same, but this really, hopefully, is about the quality of the games, and you know, we got our work cut out for us there.
On your right, second row, Tim.
Tim Reynolds, AP. Rick, if I may ask you to put your NBCA hat on, what was your reaction yesterday when you heard about Tom?
Yeah, I get asked frequently about these things, and I always say shocked, you know, and then sometimes you get numb and you're not shocked, but you know, the Knicks have such a unique situation with so much attention and such a large fan base and such a worldwide following. It's one of the most difficult jobs to take. The guys that have been most successful, Red Holtzman, Pat Riley, Jeff Van Gundy, Rick Pitino had a short run, but a very effective run. And then, there were a lot of lean years, and Tibbs went in there and changed so much. And so you look at all that, and then what happened yesterday, and when I first saw it, it came over one of the internet. I thought it was one of those fake AI things, that there's no way, it's no way possible, And I know how the players feel about him too. And so there's not much else to say. I mean, teams and ownership can make these decisions unilaterally, and it's their right to do that. And so Tom will certainly be fine. I don't think he's going to have any problem finding his next job. It's just going to depend on when he's ready to jump back in again. But I have great respect for Tibbs. I go back with him a very long way, and so I was surprised.
One follow, as you gave the anecdote yesterday of driving from Lisbon to Ogdensburg, as probably the only other guy in the room who's been to both Lisbon and Ogdensburg, I feel like I can ask this.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, where you're from, guys don't go to the NBA. It doesn't produce NBA players.
Jimmy Howard had a great career as a goalie in the National Hockey League. He's from Ogdensburg.
Yes, but not the NBA.
No, it's.
Were you ever dissuaded when you were like, this is the path I want to go down? I want to play at Maine. I want to play at Virginia. I want to play big-time basketball. Did you ever think, no, I can't because nobody here has done it? How did you get past all that?
Well, one of my best friends growing up was a guy named Hal Cohen who played at Syracuse University, and he was the greatest player to ever come out of the North Country. He was 2 years ahead of me in high school, and he got a scholarship to Syracuse University. So he got a scholarship to a big-time basketball program, and I grew up playing with him all the time, competing, and it was one of the reasons that I ended up having a chance to get a Division I scholarship. I had to go to prep school to do it. I went to Worcester Academy for a year. University of Maine was my only Division I offer. Went there for 2 years, and then through a series of connections and relationships, was able to transfer to University of Virginia and play with Ralph Sampson for a year, and that changed my life forever. And had great coaching and a lot of things that were very fortunate, and ended up getting drafted by Boston in a round that no longer exists in the draft. And so a lot of things fell my way, but I worked hard too. But seeing Hal Cohen do that was something that gave a lot of people, a lot of guys in the North Country, a lot more belief about being able to go to higher levels, not just in basketball but other sports. And I think Jimmy Howard would be another example of that.
Time for a last question. Tanya in the back.
Tanya Ganguly, New York Times. There's so much discussion about who's the next face of the league. I've even seen it phrased as like an existential question for the league after Steph and LeBron retire. What happens? I was wondering what you think about to what degree that is imperative for the league, for the health of the league. Like, do there have to be a couple of guys that sort of the whole ecosystem revolves around?
Well, I having been drafted in 1984 in the midst of the Bird Magic explosion of the NBA, I think people would assume that it was Larry and Magic, and then it was Michael Jordan for a few years, and then but things are changing. The roster construction seems to be evolving in a slightly different direction, if not a pretty significantly different direction. And it's possible that, you know, there are always going to be stars, but identifying with teams may become more of a significant thing than just the star aspect of it. You know, we'll have to see. It's such a dynamic business, and it's so quickly changing, and it can change on a moment in a moment, much like a playoff series can. But I just think the league is so healthy right now because there are so many great young players that have personality, that are such great promoters of the game simply by virtue of how they play the game, you know, with their joy, with their love. It's moving away from an isolation league to really more of a team type game. Oklahoma plays that way. We try to play that way, and so time will tell. But LeBron James and Steph Curry, I mean, those guys are still they're still the gold standard, really. I mean, they're still it, and those guys have been absolutely beyond belief.
Thank you, Coach.